Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Jacharya Stotara Satta Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Gantaraj Ki Oh glorious the assembled devotees Oh glorious the assembled devotees Oh, glories to the symbol of devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Premanand. Hari Hari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, Text 24, Jai, Vijay cursed by the sages. Text 24. So, okay. I've got it here. No lights here and they're all covered over. I think you can. I bet I got it here, that's fine. Right. Ready to go. You all see the board? Good. Tate vistami vasatvani devidiso. Kemam janayani cha shakti birudarte. Nate vata trapti vata vishvabhatu. Teja chatam panatasyat devidoda. Taten vistami vasatvanite vidisto. Temam janadi shakti birudre. Nateva triyaditapte bata vishvavatu. Teja chatamat teja chatam pavanatasya satevuda. Small. Tatena vistami vasatvanite vidisto. Temam janayani jasakti birudra. Nateva tatri adipate bata vishvavatu. Teja chatam vivavanatasya sate vinoda. Tatena vistami vasatvanite vidisto. Chemam janayani jasakvirudate. Nateva tatapte bata vishvavatu. Anyone? Tejam janayadi jasakvirudate. Nateva triyadipate vishvavatu. It's actually said about the Srimad Bhagavatam about Sri Vyasadeva that even though it is imperfectly composed, just like the meters are always different, still it is this complete and whole in the mouths of words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas on the other hand, when we have the Bhagavad Gita, we have 700 slokas. All the meters are perfect. So Krishna speaks, he just composed it so perfectly that you can appreciate the excellence and essence and the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Tat. That destruction of the path of auspiciousness. Te, by you. Nabistam is not liked. Eva, as. Sattvanidhe, the reservoir of all goodness. Viditso, desiring to do. Temam, good. Janaya, for the people in general. Nija Shakti, by your own potencies. Udrita, destroyed. Are, the opposite element. Na, not. Etavata, by this. Triadipate, of the proprietor of the three kinds of creations. Bhata, O Lord, Vishvabharatu, maintainer of the universe. Teja, potency. Chatam, reduced. Tu, but. Avanatasya, submissive. Sa, that. Te, your. Vinoda, pleasure. Dear Lord, you never want the auspicious path to be destroyed, for you are the reservoir of all goodness. Just to benefit people in general, you destroy the evil element by your mighty potency. You are the proprietor of the three creations and the maintainer of the entire universe. Therefore, your potency is not reduced by your submissive behavior. Rather, by submission, you exhibit your transcendental pastimes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna was never reduced in his position by becoming a cowherd boy or by offering respect to Sudama Brahmana or his other devotees like Nanda Maharaj, Vasudeva, Maharaj Yudhisthira, and the Pandava's mother, Kunti. Everyone knew that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, yet his behavior was exemplary. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His form is completely spiritual, full of bliss and knowledge, and it is eternal. Because the living entities are his parts and parcels originally, they also belong to the same quality of eternal form as the Lord. But when they come in contact with Maya, the material potency, due to their forgetfulness, their existential contamination is covered. We should try to understand the appearance of Lord Krishna in the spirit. As the Kumaras pray to him, he is eternally a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. He is eternally the leader of the battle of Kurukshetra, and he is eternally the opulent prince of Dwarka and the lover of the damsels of Vrindavan. All of his appearances are meaningful because they show his real characteristics to the conditioned souls who have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Lord. He does everything for their benefit. The force exhibited in the battle of Kurukshetra by the desire of Krishna and through the agency of Arjuna was also a necessity, because when people become too irreligious, force is required. Non-violence in this respect is rascaldom. All right? Om Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Durgame Parimendasya Skalapate Gati Maho Swakripa Yustadana Shantu Avalamana. So, it's a very forthright sloka, full of wonderful realizations. So the first line of the translation talks about, dear Lord, you never want the auspicious path to be destroyed, for you are the reservoir of all goodness. So because the Lord is the embodiment of goodness, he wants other people to also reach that platform of the mode of goodness. So in the material world, he proffers the path of spiritual liberation that is always there since the beginning of creation, but it comes in different forms. But this pathway becomes overgrown and covered, sometimes like the pathways in the material world become covered. It's like there used to be a pathway up to the top of the mountain here at one stage, but it's very hard to reach now, and when you get halfway up the hill, it's quite prolific because the trees are so tall that you can't see anything. You can't see the directions, you can't see down, you can't see up hardly, you just know that there's a gradient. but the path is not visible, and it's quite easy to get lost. Got a story about being lost. I've got a bit like someone's sons and daughters about 20 years ago. They thought that they could reach the farm from going on the Yukai Road and parking their car there, and someone can pick them up when they came here. So they started climbing up the mountain to get to the top and come back down the other side. Right? So very, very soon into their ascent on the mountain, they became lost because they couldn't see which way anything went. And there was two of them. There was a couple of girls in sort of summer dresses and the two boys, and I think they had one apple between them, right, for eating, right? So, and they had tongs. No hiking shoes. It was just a sort of spontaneous idea, and then one of the boys slipped and gashed his leg, so the other boy had to carry him. And they're trying to work out which way to go, and then finally they saw a stream coming down the river, so they coming down the mountain, so they followed the stream, got back down to the bottom of the hill, all sort of bruised and battered and hungry and whatever. So it's like pathways sometimes become covered over. So in the Bhagavad Gita it also describes this. There's a couple of slokas. It's one epic sloka, I think you all know it probably in English, Dumine Vritte Vanir Yatha Darsho Malena Cha Yato Benavrita Garbastata Tenadam Avritam. Anybody got an idea what it is? As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or the embryo is covered by the womb. You remember that? Has ever come across that one? So similarly, the soul is covered by the different modes of material nature. And further on in chapter 15, I'd say the first three slokas, my favourite slokas in the Bhagavad Gita, because it talks about the banyan tree. So the banyan tree, as we all know, is this like prolific tree. And if you have a look at it, you see that the branches, they can grow up or they can grow down. So when the branches grow down, they become roots, and then from there branches come, and so in this way the banyan tree spreads, and you actually don't know where the beginning of the banyan tree is. You can wander around in the banyan tree. Sometimes there are banyan trees that are like kilometres wide and kilometres long in India, and actually there's a whole market under a banyan tree in Navadweep in Mayapur. It's this huge banyan tree, and they've set up a market, and you go on these little alleyways and it's all the tree. So it said that in the chapter 15 said that this banyan tree with the branches up and down, it's a ephemeral banyan tree which we can't see, but the branches that are growing up and down, they're like the three modes of material nature, and the leaves, they're like the Vedas, but the twigs are like objects of the senses. And then when the roots go down, they go into the ground, and that sort of is represented by the fruits of attachment to this material world. So you're rooted in this material world, so that's the fruitive actions of human society. And you can't tell where it begins or where it ends, but what you have to do is, because it's such a dense sort of tree that you're entangled in, you have to cut it down with the weapon of detachment. So these are the first three slokas, and then you find the true path back to the spiritual world. So it's chapter 15, I recommend you read it, it's fascinating. So Krishna always, he's provided that pathway for us in the material world, this pathway to liberation. And one of the definitions of it is that societies, they go through different processes, and the four processes are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Religiosity, economic development, material sense gratification, and liberation. One follows on from the other. From Dharma, because of the piety, worship of demigods, you get economic development because they supply abundant fruits and grains and whatever. And then from that you have economic developments where you can sort of take it even further and research in science and whatever, but then you also have some time for leisure. And with this leisure, you begin to develop your propensity for karma, sense gratification. And then after all your senses are being utilised, you reach old age because the senses become diminished. Because you had Dharma, then you can understand the true nature of the body, that it's only temporary, and the eternality of the soul is the prime concern. So therefore you concentrate on moksha, liberation, Dharma, Artha, Kama, moksha. This applies to the individual and it applies to society in general. With a good king, because of the pious acts of the king, because the sacrifice of the people in general, big sacrifices, instead of a big football match, they have a big jagya and everybody comes to the jagya. I'm still amazed at the Indian population. When they come here, they'll come and they'll watch an arti. Now, who in the West can just sit there and watch an arti? You know, there's the incense, very nice, and there's a ghee lamp. Oh, they get to take the ghee lamp around. And then you offer the water, they splash the water, and then you get the flow. And they're just happy to just watch the arti, right? Watch the yagya. So this is a sort of dharmic civilization. But when you have a proliferation of atheism, and then Dharma is challenged and almost destroyed, so you eliminate the Dharma, you've got the economic developments happening strongly, and from economic development, then you have the sense gratification which becomes paramount, and you can't get enough of it, so you want more, so therefore you become subject to the modes, influence of the modes of material nature, like from that passion of trying to enjoy. Of course, there's sukha, dukkha, there's happiness and distress, that you want to go further, and you sink down into tamagun, which is sort of like the symptoms of this age, tamagun, symptoms of the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. When you're at that stage, liberation is lost. You don't know what liberation is. People at the end of their life, when their senses are diminished, they can't enjoy. They refer to fame, adoration and distinction and leave a footprint, or they try to enjoy the material body whichever way they can in a very slow fashion, travelling around the world on a boat cruise or something. But the real liberation is lost. So therefore you have the civilization, which is just economic developments and sense gratification. And Prabhupada, in so many different instances, describes this, that this is a society of cats and dogs. Basically, it's an animal civilization, eating, sleeping, and mating and defending. So it's become a misguided civilization. So in the Bhagavad Gita, what we have here, it said that, Lord, you never want this vicious past to be destroyed. So Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that whenever Dharma, yada yada hi dharmasya glani bharata bhavati bhutanam dharmasya. I've really butchered this one. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bharata bhavati bharata tadyatmanam. What's the last line? I take it whenever and wherever is the rise of religion, I descend myself to annihilate the miscreants and establish the principle, the religious principles. So Prabhupada in the purport is talking about Krishna's instructions to Arjuna, that he was encouraging Arjuna at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita to stand up and fight. And who was he up against? He was up against opposing forces, and they were the Kurus, and they were led by the king Duryodhana, who had a completely atheistic mentality. He had a very envious nature. He refused to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he had ample examples of Krishna being before his eyes and showing him his prowess as the Supreme. But he refused to accept it because of his envious nature, that he wanted to be the supreme controller in so many different ways. And Duryodhana also had the support of the demons from the celestial planets. There was a real force that there was Arjuna was the son of King Indra, and Yudhisthira was the son of Dharmaraj, and Bhima was the son of Vayu. They're all demigods. And opposing them were the Asuras also. So there was a sort of a real entanglement between heaven and earth, and the demons supported Duryodhana. So this came to a head in facing an epic battle, and it was described as a battle between religion and irreligion. And Krishna was calling upon Arjuna to use his prowess as a warrior to fight, because Arjuna had honed all his great warrior skills, and as we can see, he had so many epic battles where they used so many celestial weapons to fight each other, and Arjuna prevailed with the help of Krishna. So without Arjuna's Kshatriya skills, it would have been practically impossible for the Pandavas on the side of righteousness to overcome the Kurus. So that being said, I won't sort of delve into the Mahabharata. Sometimes a lot of speakers sort of make that mistake and go down the rabbit hole and start talking about one incident, another incident, and then they become tangled up because one leads to another. But Arjuna's mind, as we can see in the Bhagavad Gita, it was wavering, and it was actually a decision between fame. Krishna explained to him it's between fame and infamy. He said to Arjuna, you're fighting out a sentiment. You're going to become infamous because of famous. See, and fame is the pride of the Kshatriya. Kshatriya wants to, he's very proud. And Arjuna was putting it to Krishna that, look, out of sentiment, I don't want to fight on the other side because I'm going to cause so much damage, so many widows, my members of the family are going to kill. What for? And he was almost on the bodily concept of thinking that it's me, but actually it was going ahead anyway. And Krishna, of course, wanted to establish the principles of religion, so Arjuna was his implement by which he could do that. Of course, Arjuna said, you're mourning for what is not worthy of grief. And it was quite ironical because that wasn't, Arjuna said, I'm going to go into the forest, I'm going to become an ascetic, and then I'll become renounced. But it was ironic because that was not Arjuna's temperament to do so. That was clear in his character. Not only was he a great Kshatriya, but also he had the elements of a Kshatriya, that a Kshatriya could get very easily angered and so on and so forth. One time when he come back in Kurukshetra, Yudhisthira thought that he killed Karna because Karna had made a mockery of him, and Arjuna just come back because he heard that Yudhisthira was just sent back to the camp injured by Karna, and he said, you've killed him. And Arjuna said, no, I just come to check on you. He said, what? You've come back, you've left the battlefield, you've run away, you're a coward, to Arjuna. And he got so mad, and all of a sudden he forgot his promise, I'll become an ascetic and I'll be really peaceful, because that wasn't in his nature. He couldn't be that. He was a Kshatriya. So this is where Krishna also explains it's better, in Bhagavad Gita, it's better to carry out your prescribed duties rather than do someone else's, because that will also lead to chaos. So Arjuna's argument that I'm not going to fight to save my family and my friends and cause all this destruction, that was not an option for him. So that's why Srila Prabhupada explains in this very prolific sentence in the last sentence in the purport that through the agency by the desire of Krishna and through the agency of Arjuna, it's also necessary because when people become too religious, force is required. Non-violence in this respect is rascaldom. So that's what he was saying to Arjuna. It's just a sort of take it down to a bit of the reality which we're in, I was studying philosophy as a part of my course there once upon a time at the university, and one of the philosophical questions which I had a lot of trouble in dealing with was they gave us the example of a drowning man, the drowning person, that we're walking by a river and then we see a person that is drowning, and what is our moral obligation? Do we save him, or do we not have necessarily have to save him? Just like, for instance, if we're walking somewhere and we've got to be somewhere, someone's expecting us, then this is going to be very troublesome. We're going to get wet, we're going to be delayed, and our life is going to be disturbed, or our clothes are going to get so many different things. Or are we morally, because there is a person in trouble, are we morally obligated to save that person, jump in and save that person? So that was a very nice philosophical question, which I couldn't answer really for so many years. I really, toss and turn. Some people would say, yes, save by all means, we're obligated to jump in if we're able to and save that person. Other people say, well, he got into that trouble, that's his karma, let it all play out. Right? So there's two arguments there. So one of the devotees I was listening to in Mayapur, I think, might have been Ratna Swami, he gave the example there of in the Puranas, in the same circumstance, that there was a farmer in the paddock and he had a scythe and he was cutting the wheat. Very close to him was a road, and there was a pilgrim walking along the road. And the pilgrim got attacked by wild animals who just began to devour him. And ultimately, when the pilgrim was crying for help, the farmer just kept on cutting the wheat field, and there was a sage nearby. The sage was too far away to do anything, and he saw that the pilgrim got killed by these wild animals, and the farmer just kept chopping the wheat, or whatever he was chopping. So the sage came up to him, and he said to him that you actually have committed an act of violence by not trying to save that person. You could have actually saved him, you had the ability to save him, but you didn't. So therefore you're subject to that karma, that act of violence, that person dying. So that explained it to me quite clearly that as human beings, that we are obligated to do something for our fellow human beings, whether you call it empathy or empathy or whatever you call it, it's our moral obligation to do so. So that was from the Puranas. So in the same manner as like Arjuna had to fight to establish religious principles, so the devotees also, what is our obligation in this material world? It's of course to become Krishna conscious, but someone made us Krishna conscious. Somewhere along the line, someone spread the seed. Of course, it all came from Prabhupada, but there was also Prabhupada's men, Prabhupada's soldiers. So they spread the seed. Somewhere or other, we got some information and we acted upon it, we became devotees. So in the same way, it is the endemic duty of everyone to actually spread the Krishna consciousness in whatever manner we can present it in. Now, of course, in the early days, I always use the word exuberant enthusiasm, because Prabhupada was here lighting us up, and we were so eager for people to accept the books that we used to be very, very forthright in our presentation. Actually, someone mentioned that to me a couple of days ago, just staying as a guest, about the early days in Krishna consciousness. And it was very strong, it was sort of very black and white. You're either in or you're out. If you take the devotional service, then you're very lucky and you should absorb it. Like when I joined up, I got shaved up after the third day and had robes, and we're going chanting now. We had no sort of no chance to sort of weigh it up, no discrimination, just go for it. But in this day and age, because of the nature of the age that we live in, the information highway that is there out there, people are a little bit more attuned to things, they're more sensitive, so it's a different approach in this particular age. We have so many different utilities at our disposal. Of course, the principle's always the same, because when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he said that we've got to kill that demonic mentality, so the weapon is the Maha Mantra. So he brought the divine mantra to help us and to stun the brain and to neutralize the penchant for sense gratification. So we can see, we've experienced it, that we have these festivals, we have the chanting on the streets, and we have the kirtans, and people just become completely enamored by the strength of the holy names. They're very, very potent. So this is the method by which we can actually cure people's demonic mentality and put them back on that path of a path that we're looking for, that path of spirituality, Dharma, Karma, Artha, Moksha. Until we do that, it's just a misguided civilization, and they're all after. It's like Prabhupada says, like a mirage in the desert. Right? It's like a deer. He sees water in is it the deer? They see water in the desert there, and you go chasing after it, but it's just a mirage. Sometimes driving across the desert, anybody experience that? You see a blue haze of water in the distance there, on the way to Perth, right? Across the Nullarbor Plains, those people. So, but the spiritual path is real and tangible, and the taste is in the chanting of the holy names. And this is Lord Chaitanya's, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's giving this out. Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam kalo nasteva, nasteva gatiranya tadat. In this age of Kali, the means of a deliverance is by chanting the holy names. There is no other way, no other way. So, Omagina Timarandasya, with disseminating the shining torchlight of knowledge, not hitting people over the head with it, but, just sort of conventionally giving them prasadam and attracting people by qualities of the mode of goodness. That's why so many people are coming here. There's someone here just came a couple of days ago and said, I've been preaching for the last couple of years, and we've been doing outreach programs everywhere, and I can start them here. But I said, well, look, there's no need for you to start any outreach programs, because they're all coming here. We've got more than enough people here to preach to. So we're doing something right by the practice of Krishna consciousness here. And it is through different means. It's, the means of yoga, and that is very important. So sometimes people say, well, you're mixing it up, that you're teaching the Hatha Yoga and you're sort of deviating from the real thing. I just thought that at this point in time, we've still got a couple of minutes, if I can find it really quickly, I have a letter from Srila Prabhupada to do with this, just to clarify any misconception that people have. And people out there do have misconception, I don't think Krishna Village is the right way for us to go. So in Bombay, 1976, in December, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter, and it was a really lovely letter. Dear Kabul Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. I'm in receipt of your letter, dated 12th of the 12th, 76. So this is the same year I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and 1 year after that he disappeared from the planet. I've read your whole letter to His Divine Grace. This is someone saying, I've read your whole letter to His Divine Grace, right? And the following is the account of his remarks. Regarding teaching other kinds of yoga so that we may advertise an 8 or 9 day course for tourists, Prabhupada liked the idea. He said, that will be very attractive. Really? Other types of yoga mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. We can adopt that. 3 or 4 men, I can teach how to do it. then you'll be able to attract them. I can teach how to sit down, posture, asana, pranayama, without any trouble. This is, I don't have the rest of the letter, but that gives you the gist of it, that actually there are so many means that we can use by attracting people, and this is one means that we have, and it's working so beautifully. So, and then of course you just see everybody chanting Sarira and chanting Hare Krishna at the end, and you know this process is working so nicely, and it has made so many devotees. This is one of our means by which make the devotees. And when we do that, then it's for that devotee to pass it on also. So that is the message that is being taught here by Krishna. And Krishna explains, those who preach the message of the Bhagavad Gita are very dear to me, and I am dear to them. So Krishna becomes endeared to the devotees. So that is the other part of the purport that Srila Prabhupada is talking about, that there's a higher mission. There's that mission to develop that love of Krishna, and in order to help facilitate that, Lord Krishna, he embraces the love of his devotees, and he becomes very, very humble in the presence of such devotees. This is what the four Kumaras are noticing in Krishna, that you are the proprietor of the three creations and the maintainer of the entire universe. Therefore, your potency is not reduced by your submissive behaviour. Rather, by submission, you exhibit your transcendental pastimes. So, Srila Prabhupada in purport explains gives a few examples of Krishna's humility. And they're very poignant examples in different circumstances, just like when Sudama Brahmana came to see Krishna in Dwarka. Thought Krishna was living in palaces of opulence, and here's his school friend, Gurukul friend, coming, and he's totally impoverished, just has a few grains of rice, and he was too embarrassed to actually give them to Krishna as a gift, because when you see Supreme Personality of Godhead, you give him a gift. So people come to the temple, they give Krishna a gift. So Krishna said, "What have you got for me?" He said, I haven't got anything." He said, "No, you've got something in your bag there." And he took it off him, and he grabbed a few grains of rice, and he started to eat them. He said, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is so nice that I could give you the whole material creation just by this one grain of rice, you know." And then, of course, Lakshmi got really worried that Krishna was going to give everything away to this Brahmana. So she said, stop eating. Don't eat any more. You've already given him enough." So this was Krishna's obligation to Sudama Brahmana. He was so pleased by his devotion that the grains of rice were just an expression of his devotion with Krishna, that he was completely absorbed in him. Krishna reciprocated. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions that Krishna offered his respects to his parents. Of course, Krishna, when he was a baby, when he was a small child, could just walk. Someone was very proud. Who was it? There's someone just came to the feast last night, and he said, "Oh, look, this is my child here." Oh, I know it was Ivan, right? He's a school teacher, and I haven't seen his child, and this child's walking. He was very proud that the child could walk. So when Krishna reached that age, he actually put Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head, and he took his shoes to Nanda Maharaj. So that was an act of humility. And then, of course, Mother Yasoda, we were going to be singing about the Damodarastakam. She was able to bind Krishna up, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all powerful. She still bound him up because he was a naughty boy. So in that concept that she had of Krishna as a son, and he went with it just to please her. And when he went to see the Pandavas, who were completely 100% Krishna devotees, Krishna would offer his respects to Maharaj Yudhisthira because he was his elder, so he's his superior. So in this way, and of course when he was with the cowherd boys, that was so much fun that he'd play with the cowherd boys and wrestle, and they'd jump on top of him and trick him in many ways, and he'd let them do that, and they say, "Oh, we've beat you, Krishna." So there was one epic example of that the cowherd boys went with Krishna to Mathura. They were able to accompany him when he left Vrindavan. And then when he got to the arena and him and Sri Balaram faced those wrestlers, big giant wrestlers, Mustika and Chanura, huge guys. You ever seen wrestling, see these wrestlers with their big bulging necks and they stand, they look down. So these two little boys facing these wrestlers, and they had that wrestling match, and that brought out the emotions in the crowd, that some of the people say, this is not fair, he's just small boys and they're fighting these huge wrestlers. The ladies saw the beauty of Krishna and they become immediately attracted. They weren't worried about what Krishna was doing, they just attracted completely by his beauty. And so on, the demons saw, put him away. So actually Krishna and Balaram, they dispatched the wrestlers, big guys, and Kamsa was there, and he was so disappointed to see that. And then all the cowherd boys come out onto the arena and they're tapping Krishna on the shoulder, and then they had a wrestling match. They're all wrestling in the middle of the arena, and every time some boy wrestled with Krishna, they'd beat him. Krishna would be lying on his back, and that's, I won. And Kamsa, he just got infuriated. He got so mad, he got so infuriated. Put him away, guards, take him. And then, of course, Krishna jumped up and dispatched Kamsa. So they had that wonderful relationship with the cowherd boys. There's just one more story, I've got a couple of minutes, about Balaram and the cowherd boys. One time, this is Indradumna Maharaj told this story. Of course, he told it much better than what I can say, but I still remember the sort of basics of it, that Krishna was somewhere else that day, the Balaram. They went to Kalyavan. I don't know if anybody's been there, but it's on the edge of one of the forests in Vrindavan. It's right on the edge of the border of Vrindavan. And at Kalyavan, there was a nice grassy slope. So we used to do that. I've seen kids do this, slide down these nice grassy slopes. So sometimes kids used to do that on their mountain over the lake. You get some cardboard and you go flying down the mountain when there's nice grass there. So the boys were having so much fun there with Balaram, had cows nearby. And then right at the bottom of the hill, Balaram drew a line. He said, well, this is the border of our land here. On the other side of the land, no one is interested in Krishna. They don't talk about him. They pretend he doesn't even exist. And the boys going, what? No Krishna? Yeah, how can that be? Oh, they couldn't conceive of that they were thinking about Krishna all the time, and people don't think about Krishna. And then they looked around, the cows were missing. Balaram said, go and round them up, you just stay here, right? Enjoy. So the boys are still thinking about that line and what's on the other side of the line, and then of course, boys being boys, the Dharma said, Sardev, I dare you to cross that line. You're the big brave one. Go and cross that line. He said, I'm not crossing the line. Well, I will then. Just show him up. And so then they start crossing the line, daring each other to cross the line. Some cross the line, come back again. And then they go further. I dare you to go further. So they go on further, across the line. Some people stayed behind, and some of the boys, they went right out there. And they saw it right out there on the other side of the line, in the other land where people don't think of Krishna. And they look, and all of a sudden the boys look like the other boys on the other side look they're in the distance. There's like the small figures in the distance, and they're going, what are we doing? Krishna's not here. Why are we here? And they panic and they go, run back over the other side of the line. And they say, we're never ever going to cross the line because we always want to think about Krishna. So this is one of the Krishna stories there. And Balaram come back and told Balaram, he said, yes, well, this is everybody thinks about Krishna on the line. So this is how we should emulate that mentality that we're always trying to think Krishna. It's easy to think about Krishna here in the material world, on this side of the bridge, but in the material world, it's also easy for us to carry Krishna in our hearts once we have that stability. And it said that wherever there's devotee, there is Krishna. And that is very beneficial for the humanity at large, because the devotee is the most beneficial person in the whole world, and Krishna consciousness is the highest welfare. So no doubts about that. Anyway, thank you very much for your class. Finish off on there, or for you listening to my class. I've sort of lost it here. So, has anybody got any questions or comments? There's one gentleman just walking across the road here. I don't think he sees it, but he rang me about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I'd like to try Krishna consciousness. He doesn't know much about it. He said, I want to volunteer, and we made that arrangements. And he come up to me yesterday, he said, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I talked to you 2 weeks ago. I said, how's it going? He goes, fantastic. Never been here before. I know nothing about Krishna, doing so well. Serve prasadam for the rest of the night. So, very potent. Any questions or comments? Oh, we don't have a microphone, but it doesn't matter. I don't think no one's here. No one's listening. Yeah. Okay, so there's people listening outside. Just want to tell them what you felt, what you saw there before. Yeah, so Chamari Amadaji was just saying that on Harinam she come across a well-to-do couple with 4 children, and they just come off the retreat here. And they were so happy that that the retreat here changed their lives, and they were teaching their 4 children the prayers, and the prayers that they were teaching were the Sarira prayers. Yeah. Thank you very much. Jai.